everyone. My name is Pat Tubach. I've got a background in film and television. For media and entertainment, the MCP plugin that Michael just showed you opens up a wide range of new connections to LLMs, but also to image and video models like Nano Banana, GPT Image, Grok Imagine, Luma, Seedance, and many more. Michael was telling you about tools in the present, and I'm going to cover tools for creating linear content that are releasing early next year that give you control over these models. The standard approach to using an image model is to start by crafting a text prompt. In this case, I wrote a novel describing a fictional scene in Epic Motors, a 1950s gas station. But in professional situations where you have to hit story points, match exact continuity, and deliver what your creative director wants, you would typically communicate visually through sketches and pre-rivs. Unreal is great for that. So, to get started in Unreal, I scouted the derelict corridor scene from Quixel that's available on Fab, which I quickly customized to look like the gas station layout I needed. I worked in detail lighting mode since I was just using this for blocking to this stage. I dropped in some of the appropriate assets from that map: shelving, a propane tank, a cabinet, and also made proxy shapes for the assets that I didn't have: a long counter, more shelving, a cash register, and an ice chest. Then I backed up and framed my camera view and animated a boom down and a push in that I'd later use for my shot. But before I tackled the full video creation, I had to create a single style frame, the visual reference of my scene. To do that, I used the model to combine a depth pass plus the prompt novel I'd written before. The depth conditions the models to understand the layout and the framing. Here's how that works using our new tools in Unreal. I asked Claude Code, connected by our MCP plugin, to use Unreal's movie render graph to create a 4K image, plus all the rest. Asking for an Unreal render to create the image was a signal to Claude Code that I wanted to give my model my depth pass, but use the creative look described in my prompt. I then fired off that request. And while it was being generated, I inspected the graph that it made for the task. Image models are hungry for helpful data and conditioning, and so I prepared a process that pulls valuable visual data from the Unreal scene and passes it to the image model, in this case, Google's Nano Banana Pro. Now, let's take a look at this image more closely. You can see that it did a great job matching the visual detail I asked for, but most importantly, it didn't place things randomly. It matched the composition of my Unreal viewport exactly. From there, I could start to iterate. For example, I wanted another tire on the floor, but I didn't have that particular asset because it was an image model creation. Using the new image segmentation tools in the editor to mask the tire, I selected both the mask and the image, and with a predefined workflow, asked Claude Code to extract it, repair it, and mesh it using Trippo 3.1. And then I double-checked that graph, and I supervised the work. Now, of course, this is not a real-time process, so after several minutes, I got my textured tire mesh. I saved it to the content browser, where I then pulled in the tire and positioned it in 3D space. And finally, I asked Claude Code to add the tire to the image. Let's take a look at that result. So if we compare my UE passes with the tire in it, you can see that it put the new tire where I asked it to, and it made it look like a variation of the generated tire, not an exact duplicate. All right, now let's add something totally new to the scene by going back to the viewport for another round in 3D. I went browsing on Fab and found one of our junkyard car parts for Megascans. I picked the specific fender piece that I wanted that had a 1950s look modeled into it to leave less to the image model's imagination. I asked Claude Code to add it to my image and make it look like it had been newly repainted. And after another image processing step in Nano Banana, that was done. Okay, now that I produced my style frame, I was ready to go back to our new Unreal tools to generate a video of our scene. And here's my shot camera move again. If you recall, this is the move that I created at the beginning. Over on the right, I ran a sequence render node that represents the depth over the entire range. I'm going to use the same depth restyling process with the video that I did on the still image. I supply the style frame I just generated to the video model as a first frame reference, and you can see that I added a cat, just hoping for a bit of life. And then I set my video generation node to use Seedance 2.0, set the resolution, added audio, and then I was off. Once that process had run for several minutes, I had a video that looked like this. So clearly, this is showing you that I can control the camera but nobody controls a cat. All right, let's leave the garage and the cat and move on to an apartment. This is a different workflow that we've been building in parallel for more rapid concepting with diffusion and your viewport side by side. What you're seeing here in this video is the UE viewport on the left that was streaming to a local Flux-Klein image model on the right. The local model result isn't temporally coherent. It was stamping a new image on every frame and only running a few frames a second, which is why it seems slower over there on the right. But let me show you how intuitive it is to use. I prompted for sunset lighting at first, and then decided to see what it would look like if there had just been a fire in this apartment. And then I tried something more extreme, like being underwater at the bottom of a murky pond. The real benefit you get here is being able to go back to the UE viewport, interact with the assets, and see them repositioned through this new diffusion lens. Not only that, but you can try more illustrated looks, like a charcoal drawing or even a watercolor painting. As models get more capable and hardware improves, it's not hard to project this workflow forward to a time when diffusion's real-time and temporally consistent. Okay, let's look at some other examples of Unreal Engine scenes restyled by artists in the engine using a variety of sources, some of which are premium environment packs from our friends at Kitbash 3D, and some of which are our own internal assets, including the city sample. Starting from quality source assets leaves less room for interpretation by the models. We think these new UE tools are a force multiplier that will give artists more opportunities for creative iteration on their work alongside the real-time animation, modeling, texturing, and virtual production tools that you've come to count on in Unreal Engine. So this is where we're headed. The MCP server that's enabling all this is experimental, and what you're seeing here for image and video creation will be available early next year. We're on this journey together, and we're aware that for these models to be truly useful, we need to focus on not just lowering technical complexity, but also giving you full creative control over what you're making. Thank you.